They were not faceless bureaucrats. They were not mere cogs in a machine. They were men of influence, ambition, and cruelty. They built a nightmare, brick by brick, bullet by bullet. These are the men who stood beside Adolf Hitler. This is the story of how they rose, how they ruled, and how they fell. When Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany in January 1933, he brought with him a cadre of loyalists. They were not equals. They were rivals. Each man sought Hitler's approval. Each wanted to be indispensable. What united them was their loyalty to the Führer and their shared vision of a racially pure empire built on blood and steel. They became ministers, generals, governors, and executioners. Together, they constructed the Nazi regime, one of the most brutal in human history. Heinrich Himmler, the architect of genocide. Heinrich Himmler looked like a mild-mannered schoolteacher, small, bespectacled, soft-spoken, but behind that appearance was a mind driven by ideology and cruelty. As head of the SS, Himmler transformed it into a vast empire of terror. He oversaw the Gestapo, the concentration camps, and the death squads. He masterminded the final solution. He personally approved the building of gas chambers, mass shootings, and the extermination of over 6 million Jews. He called genocide a necessary cleansing of the German soul. He walked through mass graves, inspected camp operations, and signed off on death like a man approving a budget. In 1945, when the war was lost, Himmler tried to negotiate peace with the Allies. Branded a traitor by Hitler, he was captured by the British and committed suicide by biting a cyanide capsule. Joseph Goebbels, the master of propaganda. Joseph Goebbels was the master of lies. As minister of propaganda, he weaponized the media, flooded the airwaves with hate, and built a cult around Hitler. He manipulated newspapers, films, and radio broadcasts, turning them into tools of indoctrination. Goebbels orchestrated Kristallnacht, incited hatred, and silenced all opposition. He once said, "If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it." He shaped the minds of a generation, replacing facts with fanaticism. When the war was lost, he remained at Hitler's side. On May 1, 1945, in a Berlin bunker, he poisoned his 6 children with cyanide, then shot himself next to his wife. Loyalty until the last breath. Hermann Göring, the corrupt commander. Hermann Göring, a decorated World War I ace, founded the Gestapo and led the Luftwaffe. He was a man of greed and grandeur. He plundered Europe's art, amassed personal wealth, and lived in opulence while millions suffered. Göring's Luftwaffe bombed London, Warsaw, and Rotterdam. He established the 4-year plan, using forced labor to fuel Nazi industry. Addicted to morphine and obsessed with luxury, Göring turned war into personal gain. At Nuremberg, he was arrogant and defiant, attempting to justify his crimes. He mocked the prosecution and called the court illegitimate. Sentenced to death, he cheated the hangman by ingesting poison the night before his execution. Reinhard Heydrich, the Butcher of Prague. Reinhard Heydrich was the blade of the Holocaust. Called the Butcher of Prague, he chaired the Wannsee Conference, planning the industrialized genocide of European Jewry. He directed the Einsatzgruppen, mobile killing units that left mass graves across Eastern Europe. Intelligent, ruthless, and efficient, Heydrich was feared even by his fellow Nazis. His assassination by Czech resistance fighters in 1942 triggered brutal reprisals. The Nazis destroyed entire villages in response. His legacy was one of blood and steel, of precision and cruelty. Adolf Eichmann, the logistics of death. Adolf Eichmann, the logistics chief of genocide, ensured the trains to Auschwitz and Treblinka ran on time. He coordinated deportations, managed records, and reduced genocide to a bureaucratic routine. He spoke in numbers, quotas, and transportation tables, not in names or lives. After the war, Eichmann escaped to Argentina, but in 1960, Mossad agents captured him and smuggled him to Israel. His trial was the first to be televised worldwide. He claimed he was just following orders, but his calm demeanor and lack of remorse shocked the world. He was found guilty of crimes against humanity and hanged in 1962. Albert Speer, the Nazi, who said sorry. Albert Speer, Hitler's favorite architect, became Minister of Armaments and War Production. He used slave labor from concentration camps to keep factories running. Under his leadership, Nazi Germany maintained high levels of military production despite relentless Allied bombing. Speer claimed ignorance of the Holocaust, yet his projects stood beside death camps. He attended meetings where extermination was discussed. At Nuremberg, he accepted collective responsibility. He was the only top Nazi to show remorse, though many doubted his sincerity. He served 20 years in Spandau prison and later published best-selling memoirs. History remembers him as the Nazi who said sorry, but it does not forgive. Other key figures, Ernst Kaltenbrunner, ran the RSHA, overseeing mass murder operations. Hans Frank governed occupied Poland, managing ghettos and death camps. Rudolf Hess, Hitler's deputy, flew solo to Britain on a strange mission for peace. Joachim von Ribbentrop, the Nazi foreign minister, signed pacts with Stalin and justified invasions with lies. Each played a role. Each helped turn Hitler's madness into machinery. Systematic crimes of the regime. The Nazi regime was built on looting and exploitation. Businesses were stolen from Jews. Homes were seized. Museums were emptied. Human beings were turned into property. Gold teeth were pulled from corpses. Hair was harvested for textiles. Medical experiments were performed on prisoners. Hypothermia, sterilization, chemical burns, without anesthesia or consent. Twins were dissected. Children were tortured in the name of science. These crimes were not committed in secret. They were systematized, organized, approved at the highest levels. The Fall and Nuremberg Trials. In 1945, the Third Reich collapsed. Berlin fell. Hitler died by suicide. Those who remained faced justice at the Nuremberg Trials. 24 top Nazis were tried by an international tribunal. They were charged with crimes against peace, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. The world listened as evidence unfolded. Films of corpses, testimonies of survivors, orders signed in ink and blood. Some, like Göring, Ribbentrop, and Kaltenbrunner, were sentenced to death. Others were imprisoned. A few escaped judgment. But the world had changed. The veil had been lifted. No one could say, "We didn't know." These men were not monsters by birth. They were men who made choices. Choices that led to genocide, war, and ruin. Their legacy is a warning. When power is unchecked, when hate is preached, when silence replaces conscience, evil rises. The men around Hitler were not just servants of tyranny. They were its engine, its voice, its hand. Remember their crimes. Remember their victims. Never again allow such darkness to thrive. Never again allow lies to shape nations. Never again let humanity fall into the abyss. Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it.